Have you ever walked into a room where you felt like you didn't belong, only to discover that your entire life was about to change in ways you never imagined? Stay with me until the end of this story, because what happened that night shocked everyone in the room, and it might just restore your faith in fate, forgiveness, and second chances. And if stories like this move your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another powerful story. Daniel Mercer adjusted the collar of his worn-out shirt as he stood outside the glittering entrance of the Grand Aurora Hotel. The tall glass doors reflected a man who looked nothing like the guests walking past him in designer suits and sparkling gowns. His shoes were old, his jacket slightly too big, and the worry lines on his face made him look older than his 35 years. In his hand was a folded invitation, creased from being opened and reread dozens of times. Annual Hope Foundation Charity Gala. Daniel almost turned around for the 5th time that evening. He didn't belong here. Everyone inside was wealthy, influential, important. He was none of those things. He was just a struggling single dad trying to keep life together for his 8-year-old son, Liam. 3 years earlier, Daniel's wife had died after a long illness. Hospital bills had swallowed their savings, their house had been sold, and since then Daniel had been working 2 jobs, day shifts at a warehouse and night deliveries, just to keep food on the table. The invitation had arrived a week ago in a plain envelope with no explanation. At first Daniel thought it was a mistake, but curiosity and desperation had pushed him to come. Maybe it was some kind of opportunity. Maybe someone wanted to help. Or maybe it was nothing. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The ballroom was dazzling. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls from the ceiling. Soft music floated through the air. Round tables were covered in white silk cloths and golden centerpieces. People laughed and chatted while waiters moved gracefully through the crowd carrying trays of sparkling drinks. Daniel felt painfully out of place. He walked slowly along the wall, trying to stay unnoticed. At the far end of the room stood a stage with a large banner. Hope Foundation, Building Futures. Daniel glanced around, wondering who could have invited him. Then suddenly, something unexpected happened. A small voice cut through the crowd. Dad. Daniel froze. He turned slowly. Across the room stood a girl, maybe 11 or 12 years old. She wore a beautiful navy blue dress, her long dark hair tied neatly behind her shoulders. Her eyes were wide with disbelief, and they were locked on him. The girl took a step forward. Dad, is that really you? People nearby turned their heads. Daniel looked behind him, thinking she must be talking to someone else. But no one was there. She ran toward him. Before Daniel could react, the girl threw her arms around him. Tears filled her eyes. I knew you'd come back, she whispered. The entire room had gone silent. Daniel's heart pounded. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, he said gently. But the girl pulled back and looked directly into his face. No, she said with certainty. You're my dad. A murmur spread across the crowd. Guests began whispering to each other. Daniel felt 100 eyes on him. Then suddenly a man in an expensive suit hurried toward them, looking alarmed. Emily, he said firmly, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. What are you doing? The girl pointed at Daniel. He's my father. The man looked Daniel up and down with suspicion. That's impossible, he said coldly. But Emily shook her head. No, it's him. I've seen his picture. Daniel's mind spun. I'm sorry, he said again. There must be a misunderstanding. My name is Daniel Mercer. The man's expression changed slightly. Daniel Mercer, he repeated. Before Daniel could say anything else, another presence approached. An older man walked toward them, leaning slightly on a cane but carrying himself with quiet authority. The entire room seemed to shift when he appeared. People stepped aside. Conversations stopped. This was Victor Langston, the billionaire philanthropist hosting the gala. Emily ran to him. Grandpa, I found him. Victor looked confused. Found who, sweetheart? She pointed at Daniel. My dad. The words echoed through the silent ballroom. Victor slowly turned his gaze toward Daniel. For several long seconds, he studied the stranger standing before him. Daniel felt his throat tighten. Then Victor asked quietly, your name, did you say Daniel Mercer? Yes. Victor's eyes widened slightly. A memory flickered across his face. Years ago, a young man, a mistake, a daughter who had disappeared. Victor's voice lowered. How old are you? 35. Victor's hand trembled slightly on his cane. Where were you 11 years ago? Daniel blinked. Working construction. Why? Emily clutched her grandfather's arm. Grandpa, You told me my dad left before I was born. But what if he didn't know? The entire room waited. Victor's expression was no longer confident. He looked at Daniel again, really looked this time. The same dark eyes, the same jawline, the same resemblance to someone Victor hadn't seen in over a decade. His daughter, Clara. Clara had vanished 12 years ago after a bitter argument with him. She had been pregnant. Victor had assumed the man responsible abandoned her. And she had refused to reveal his name before disappearing. Victor's voice softened. Daniel, did you ever know a woman named Clara Langston? Daniel's breath caught. Clara, a face he had never forgotten. They had met when Daniel was 23. She had told him she was from a wealthy family but didn't want the money controlling her life. They had fallen in love quickly. But when her father found out about Daniel, a poor construction worker, everything fell apart. Clara had left suddenly. Daniel never knew why, and he never saw her again. Until tonight, he never even knew she had a child. Daniel whispered, "Yes, I loved her." Emily's eyes filled with tears. Victor felt the weight of his past crashing down on him. For the first time in years, the powerful billionaire looked small. "I forced her to leave," Victor admitted quietly. "I thought I was protecting her future." Emily squeezed his hand. "But you separated a family." Victor looked at Daniel, then at Emily, and for the first time, he realized something impossible might actually be true. The girl who had spent years asking about her father had just found him. Daniel knelt down slowly in front of Emily. His voice trembled. "Your name is Emily." She nodded. "And your mom?" Emily smiled softly. "She told me stories about you." Daniel felt tears sting his eyes. "Is she here tonight?" Emily's smile faded. "She passed away 2 years ago." The words hit Daniel like a wave. Victor closed his eyes. Another consequence of his past. But Emily held Daniel's hand. "She told me if I ever met a man who looked like the pictures, to tell him she never stopped loving him." Daniel hugged her tightly. The crowd around them had gone completely silent. Some guests wiped away tears. Because in the middle of a room full of wealth and power, something far more valuable had just happened. A broken family had begun to heal. Victor stepped forward, slowly. "Daniel," he said, "I made a terrible mistake years ago. If you're willing, I'd like to make things right." Daniel looked at Emily, then back at Victor. "I don't care about money," he said honestly. "I just want to know my daughter." Emily smiled through her tears. "Then let's start tonight." The ballroom erupted into applause. But the real story was only beginning. Because sometimes life doesn't give you the family you expect. It gives you the one you were always meant to find. And if this story touched your heart, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that even after years of loss, life can still surprise us with miracles.